What's up, everybody? Welcome to Solana Weekly. This is your host, Thomas, and I want to thank you for joining in. Let's take a dive into the latest trends, use cases, and people behind the incredible growth of the Solana ecosystem. None of this is financial advice, but I'm hoping that all of this is alpha. Now let's get to the show.
Today, we have one of the Solana DeFi OGs, Tristan, to explore his journey from the early days of Solana DeFi with Zeta to his latest project, Bullet, that is actually an L2 on Solana. Welcome to the show, Tristan. How you doing?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Thomas. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited to talk to you. I feel like you've got a good history of building on Solana, and you've built out a great protocol, and now it seems like you're really ready to take it to the next level. And I'm excited to hear about this. It's called Bullet. It gets me excited when I bring it up. So I want to hear all about what led you to building out Bullet, how you got started and everything.
Sounds good. Yeah, I can take it from the top. So like you mentioned, I've been building on Solana for quite a while at this point. It's been roughly 4 years. We got started in early 2021. I was kind of hacking around with Ethereum in the early days. Yeah. And this is while I was still kind of working my 9-to-5 tech job, I guess.
So it was really pure your side hustle.
Kind of, yeah. I'd been in crypto for a number of years, but more just trading casually like people do, But then I think because of COVID and just general burnout, I wanted to try something different. I used to work in AI and machine learning and all this kind of stuff. So building algorithms to do personalization and recommendation systems, which is pretty cool and super interesting.
Yeah.
But then, I think startups was what always excited me. I think crypto is just uniquely positioned in that you can come with an idea, you can ship the code very quickly, you can raise funds, and you can kind of get a minimal viable product out there and actually build a business within a very short period of time. So that was really cool. And kind of what we did, we signed up for one of those early hackathons, now like the Coliseum ones. But, back in the day, it was all kind of run through Solana, this big global hackathon. So we had this story that we won I think it was the second ever Solana hackathon. There were 10,000 teams in there. It was a pretty crazy experience for us because we were still working, and we just basically took leave from work for 2 or 3 weeks or whatever it was. I slept on my friend's couch for a couple of weeks. We were just learning Rust. We were learning Anchor, just kind of really chewing glass, as they say. And we managed to ship a very basic DEX, I guess, when there was basically nothing on Solana other than Radium and Serum and very, very few protocols back there. But it was really cool, and I think it exposed us to that builder culture of Solana and how people care about making things cheap and fast. That I think is the real ethos of Solana, and that's what drew us to it, and caused us to quit our jobs and go full time. That's what we've been building for the last couple of years. Is Zeta? It's a perps exchange. We think perps is just a really good vertical. It's a great fundamental trading product that people use in crypto. It doesn't really exist in traditional finance for one reason or another. It's really blossomed in crypto. It basically lets you get leverage exposure to markets. So if it is your favorite meme coin, or if it's Solana or Bitcoin, instead of trading the underlying currency, you can trade this essentially a derivative contract on top of it. It lets you go long. It also lets you short things. So you can kind of trade whichever style in bull markets, in bear markets. It's very versatile. And you get the benefits of leverage. So leverage is all about capital efficiency. With $100, I can buy, call it $1,000 or $10,000 worth of exposure, which I think is really nice for people with smaller stacks or people who had very high conviction on trades. You can kind of almost turbocharge, I guess, the kind of trading results that you're trying to get. That obviously comes with its own kind of risk management you have to do as well. There is the kind of infamous liquidations that you get from some of these products. So people who can manage risk effectively, I think it's definitely one of the kind of top tools in any kind of professional trader's toolkit there. So building that out, but building it out in a decentralized way where everything runs in smart contracts. It runs on, Solana, which we strongly believe is one of the most performant scalable chains where a lot of capital is kind of going to gravitate. That's the world that we're building towards. Is we don't want another FTX. And that was something that me and many people on my team and friends were burned by. Putting your money in this black box centralized exchange where you don't know what's going on, you don't know the results, you don't know if transactions are actually being executed the way that they claim to be. It's very different to a DEX where you have the smart contract, everything is codified essentially. If you open source or you verify the kind of set of rules and logic, people can actually trust that things are being done. And you end up trusting the code itself and not the operators behind the exchange. And that's always the big thing for us. Like we want to build this autonomous system that people can trade, that they can experience free markets on. They don't have to trust me or anyone on the team or anyone who contributes to the code base or anyone who operates any part of, the exchange. The thing just runs on the network, run by a bunch of validators, people who trade on the exchange, self-custody their own money. So it's really putting power back in the hands of users, which I think is super exciting. And yeah, that's basically what we've built over the last couple of years. Is this Perps exchange. It's done to date over $15 billion of notional volume traded through it, which is pretty cool. This year, I think we had over 100,000 users like cumulative come and use the platform, which was really nice. So we went through this big growth spurt, broke a few things here and there, but like kind of pushed us through and like helped us fix and optimize things to the kind of level that they're at now. And then like you mentioned, we hit some, I guess, I wouldn't say roadblocks, but like kind of scaling issues or pain points with the current platform. Given that it is a fully on-chain central limit order book, if you're familiar with a lot of traditional exchanges, probably usual ones that you trade on, even some of the centralized exchanges, they tend to use this order book model. It's kind of the gold standard in traditional finance, gives you the best price discovery. You don't have this like slippage and impermanent loss problem that you have with AMM. So we're like a believer of that and we're building that out. And then we were one of the pioneers to put that on chain and put it in a smart contract. That was only possible with Solana, which is really cool.
And that was like, was that like a year ago or two when that was like one of the revolutionary things, or not revolutionary, but like one of the first like cryptocurrencies to actually do it was Solana. So you were behind
100%.
Yeah.
See, when we started, that's what drew us to it. I got on a call with Anatoly. And he's like, we have this high performance blockchain. We can do a bunch of TPS. Things are actually kind of cheap. And then the whole FTX crew had gone and built Serum essentially. Serum was this spot order book, which was built, and they tried to look at all these other chains. They're like, hey, they don't have the performance requirements. Solana's the only one that can really do it. They built this thing out. And that was actually when we kind of came into it. We saw Serum. We're like, this is incredible. Someone's built fully on-chain order books. And for spot trading, we thought like, hey, derivatives are big and like perps are this amazing asset class. What if we could extend that and we could take some real learnings and apply that to kind of this domain? So yeah, it was through that innovation arc and the performance at Solana unlocked that we actually could, start our business in the first place.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
But yeah, essentially where we're at now is like that fully on-chain model is super cool. It's super decentralized. Everything runs in smart contracts. There are definitely some limitations you put yourself under, like the Solana virtual machine. Not to get too much into the nitty-gritty, but like you can only toss in like a certain amount of accounts, or there are certain limits on like how big the transactions can be and how much compute you can put into it, which kind of means the downstream effect is we can only match so many orders so fast. We can only list so many markets. We have like a few constraints to deal with. And furthermore, I guess Solana has definitely had like some slight like difficulties this year with congestion issues on the chain. It still works pretty well, but we saw like 6 months ago, it was very hard for us to operate our exchange. And that was unfortunately when we went through that growth spurt. A lot of people came in, they're like, this is really cool, but none of my transactions are landing. And it's very hard to use your product.
It always works right all at the same time as everyone comes to the chain, it starts slowing down a little bit, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's annoying because it's correlated when like the Solana price rips or when it dips, essentially, that's when all the liquidations are going off. That's when people are wanting to sell their positions, exit out, their like perps or take profit essentially. And that's when the train starts like breaking up a little bit because there's so much congestion. So from a technical standpoint, like they rolled out some changes to the networking protocol. They added this stake weighted quality of service, which definitely like helps with some of the bandwidth issues that it was experiencing and some of the spam problems. They also had these local fee markets, which let you have a bit of isolation, I guess, between different smart contracts. So if Pump.Fund is doing something crazy or there's a big NFC mint on Tensor, that won't necessarily like blow out or have massive impacts on some of the dexes that are running. There's still like some detail that they're ironing out, and it's still like a little bit tricky. But yeah, those congestion things have made it slightly hard for us to run an exchange with a ton of open interest and doing lots and lots of order volume, because we do have to kind of contend with a few different factors and deal with some limitations. So this is all getting to the point of we basically made this decision this year, and we've been mulling on this, I guess, for at least a year or maybe 1.5 years on going more down the kind of layer 2 route, or building kind of, I guess, what I would call like apps infrastructure. And so that's kind of this tug of war. We were like, hey, we love the monolith and we love Solana as this general purpose chain. We love that everything is on this unified layer. That's kind of what attracted us to Solana. But I think because our use case is like quite niche in terms of trading, we do need to optimize for a lot of things. We really care about UX, we care about performance, we care about execution. So we came and converged on the solution of how do we at least use the security and the fact that there are a lot of great native assets on Solana and the fact that it is very scalable as a base layer, with the fact that we want to have a bit more like custom trading infrastructure where I don't have to go to Anvitoli and tell them to build, break the core kind of core Solana protocol to like, hit around our need. And that's where we converge from this layer 2 solution. Building our layer 1, I think, would be a gargantuan effort. You have to bootstrap your own validator set. There probably wouldn't be that many validators to start. It has its own kind of host of problems. And for a reasonably like, not a huge team that we have, like a fairly lean team, that would be quite a large effort. But layer 2s are really nice in that we can build on top of Solana with this idea of a network extension. People can bridge in very quickly from Solana. We're going to have a bridge that takes actually like a couple of seconds to deposit. And like the finality of Solana is very quick. And we also are kind of secured or have this shared security with Solana. Solana has over 1,000 validators essentially. So when we post the data from our rollup and have essentially consensus applied to that on what the kind of correct rollup blocks are, that's going to go through Solana layer 1 and all those validators are going to get a vote to that. Solana layer 1 doesn't actually understand what's happening in these rollup blobs, but it can actually still vote and kind of process the correct ones for the network. And then the nice thing is with the rollup, you actually take what's called the execution, essentially this virtual machine, the process that is running these transactions and processing them and computing them and executing them. We take that onto our layer 2, we offload it from Solana. So Solana doesn't have to, kind of go and process millions of trading transactions through it and kind of bloat the network. We do all this kind of on our rollup. The nice thing is that we run all these central limit order books very, very fast as a result. On our sequencer, we can get down to 5 milliseconds of latency, which is really nice. That's basically competitive. It's not better than most centralized exchanges. I think Binance is 20 milliseconds. So it's actually better than some of the top centralized exchanges because our order book is written fully in Rust and we've kind of done a lot of performance optimization there. That's exciting. We can get to, I did some of the napkin math recently. Remain should be seen on mainnet necessarily, but we think we can get around 5,000 to 7,000 TPS, which I think is pretty cool and more than enough to get started. So it's going to be really nice.
That's huge. Well, yeah. And then we also, that way because you guys can kind of focus on your own transactions. You don't necessarily have to worry about all of the other ones now, right? So it's all fine tuned to exactly what you guys want now, right?
Exactly. So having that isolated block space is really nice. If Solana gets very congested for a period of time, our order book can still kind of run in the background and continue to process trades as if nothing happened. But we kind of, I guess, describe it as this asynchronous, almost communication between them. So our rollup can kind of run ahead, and then periodically, let's say every couple of seconds, or it might be even every 30 seconds, we would need to take the results of that and essentially post that back to Solana for everyone to kind of verify. So even if Solana goes down for a very short period of time or has a bit of spike congestion, we can kind of live through that and use the rollup. We'll not have to work with that. If Solana does go down for 10 hours or something or other, that will definitely cause issues for us. But we're kind of betting on the fact that Solana is pretty battle hardened these days and much improved. So it's kind of nice. Yeah, we do get our own block space. We do get that separation. So we can actually confidently run an exchange that is going to be processing millions or billions of dollars of volume. And we don't have to worry about random, things happening on the chain that are kind of going to cause slowdowns or cause kind of degradations in performance.
That's awesome. And I mean, as far as looking at this from a user perspective, the whole reason for building the L2 makes a ton of sense, right? Especially in perps, you're trading people, I don't know how much leverage everyone's using or what the average leverage is, but if you're on, using a lot of leverage, you need to get in and out of positions pretty quick. And when you want to make those transactions is when there's big spikes in the price. And when there was big spikes in the price, that's when we saw the congestion issues. So if you're a user and you had open positions, maybe with limit orders, set to take profit at a certain level or a stop loss at a certain level, those transactions weren't going through, right? So from a user perspective, you were not getting the best product that you could. So you guys were like, all right, let's figure out a way that we can get exactly what we want. That's a pretty cool solution, I think.
100%. I think that's how things should be built. I think we have this weird like thing going on in crypto where people just build infrastructure for the sake of infrastructure. It's like,
Yeah.
we're going to build an L2 and, like, what does it really do? Who knows? For us, we took the opposite approach, which is we're a very application and end user specific, or like focused platform. We really care about improving the trading experience. Like you said, it's the reliability. When I click, but I want to send my order through, it goes through, it gets filled, I get out of my positions or I get in my positions when I want to, and I don't have to worry about, like people get pretty apathetic or annoyed when they go to trade on the DEX and suddenly congestion hits and they get filled at the wrong price or they lose money. That's when I think people get pretty frustrated with DeFi.
Yeah.
So we're really trying to like solve those user problems, and having this solution, I think was really good, because we just see this massive gap in the market. For anyone who's out there in the Solana audience who has traded perps or even traded a bunch of those spot stuff. I think some of the platforms out there are great. Like Jupiter is like fantastic, still occasionally has congestion issues or things don't go through. I think on the perps it's even more pronounced because you have leverage, and maybe there is, because you have leverage, things move a lot quicker. You need to get in and out really quickly with these kind of higher risk positions. And I think the status quo of like some of the existing platforms that are out there don't really cater well to the professional trading audience. So you see from like most people taking this AMM approach to perps, which means you get your AMM always gets picked off, because it's too slow. People just go and they take the price on a centralized exchange like Binance and they just, are arbitraging all the times. As an LP of some of these protocols, you tend to lose money and it's not a very sophisticated strategy. They also don't let you do stuff like limit orders, which is just kind of like it's like crazy for a professional trader to come in. They're like, I can't actually trade limit ordered. I have to do market orders. Platforms like Jupiter have kind of limit orders, but they're not real limit order. Like they have to get kind of like processed or kind of fired off in the back end. Sometimes they don't land. Sometimes they don't go through. Like I talk to a lot of professional traders and they're like, yeah, this is just like, I can't rely on this to really like trade professionally on, which is pretty tough. And then there's other things like if you use any Solana smart contract, there's just usability issues. If you want to place a trade, your backpack or your phantom wallet pop-up goes there. You have to wait for it to simulate. You have to click accept, and then it kind of goes through. And that's in very stark contrast to a centralized exchange where you're kind of just click trading. You see the right price. You need to snipe that within a fraction of a second. You can't really do that with all of these on-chain things. So we've actually reinvented that as well. And we worked on a solution where you can essentially use session keys. You kind of sign at the start of your session, and then all kind of subsequent, maybe for the next, 10 or 15 minute trading session, you can trade in and out of positions. You don't have to like re-sign, re-authenticate the wallet all the time. It just makes like the whole experience. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's like really fun. I've just been playing around with it, and I'm just like, wow, the experience is basically, and if people are interested, we're rolling out a kind of closed beta test net. And so definitely like get into our Telegram or our Discord, or contact us on Twitter, and we'll happily get you on there. But you can come on, you get your funds onto the roll up, and then essentially you place a trade. So once you've already authenticated the session, and your trade just goes through like instantly, like within milliseconds, the thing goes through. I didn't have to sign the modal all the time. It basically just feels like the experience that you would otherwise get from a centralized exchange. The benefits obviously being that it is on chain, everything is verified using these kind of DK proofs of computation, which is pretty cool. And you still custody all your assets, and you can view this thing on a block explorer. So for me, it's essentially the best of both worlds.
Yeah, it seems to me like it's like it is the best of both worlds, and it's not something that's necessarily anywhere else, right? Like I when you talk about that trading experience, like I, think of what it takes to actually, set a trade on Solana. I don't do much perps trading myself, but I definitely have before. And when I do, it's like, I don't know if there's enough liquidity on the exchange sometimes, or I don't know how long it's going to take for it to actually go through. So, I mean, that kind of sounds like that's solved a lot of the pain points for perps in general on chain, right?
100%. That's exactly the goal. And you brought up another good point there, which is liquidity. This is like one of the other issues that I think a lot of people have is if there's no enough liquidity, you get a lot of slippage, you get filled at bad prices, you kind of tend to, it's definitely like a lost leader there. It's difficult for users to go and trade a lot of these markets. And I think it's becoming increasingly hard to provide robust liquidity on chain, at least for perps, just because the gas market's getting very expensive. Market makers are complaining. It's like my bill now to go and post orders on Solana, especially on stuff like central limit order books on chain, very expensive. Sometimes you kind of don't win in the gas of the auction. You get beat out by other people who are going to snipe your prices. Like it's a very complicated, very difficult venture to do for only like, some of the best marketing. So it really brings it down to a small pot of, competent people who can do it. And not even then, like I think it's somewhat of a difficult venture where you have to kind of risk a lot of capital or potentially lose a lot of money to actually provide, good liquidity there. And then you look at centralized platforms, there's like very little risk because you don't have to deal with these gas fee markets. Things go through with milliseconds rather than 400 milliseconds of Solana. There's just like a lot of advantages there that means that people can provide very, very tight liquidity and markets on more centralized platforms. And that's been kind of the problem for me is like, I don't want to see DeFi or some of these DEXs as kind of like I don't know, it's kind of like a not serious platform. I don't know how to explain it, but like theater the toy essentially. People come in there and they play around. They're like, oh, I get some yield, I get some point, I get this and that, and then they don't actually use it. I want this to be the de facto trading venue that people use because they're benefiting from the security and transparency that's built into the platform. The self-custodial nature of it. And so it was a big reason why we also wanted to build this. We want to make the infrastructure much better for market makers and traders who trade on the platform. You're running bots or scripts or any kind of automated packages. We not only have much better tooling for people, but also because we have these performance benefits, being able to place, cancel, like replace essentially your orders within 5 milliseconds is really, really, really helpful for these guys. Because the price might move on Binance or some other exchange very quickly. If your block time is like a second or multiple seconds, like it might be on Ethereum, suddenly like the price has moved 0.5% or something crazy on, like a big move up. Like for example, yesterday, Bitcoin wicking super hard with the kind of Korean martial law stuff.
Yeah.
Those happen. And you're going to be saying, hey, Bitcoin, I thought was 95K and maybe it's 94K, like the next minute, suddenly people just kind of take your order off. You're starting to lose a lot of money because you weren't able to go in there and refresh your kind of best prices. So that's been a big problem. And I think that's something that's plagued a bunch of these kind of existing platforms and will be, in my opinion, like a largely solved problem with that rollup, which I think is super exciting. So we're going to get much tighter liquidity, much better experience for users, much better pricing, which I think is good for all.
Yeah, that's awesome. And when you talk about like professional traders that come in, if they see a spread difference of like a couple percent more than they have to, like that eats away at their profitability. They're tracking those numbers 100%, and that's a huge deal for them, right? Like they're
exactly.
They're coming on chain. They're probably used to a lot better trading venues, and they're just not going to stick with it, right? So you almost have to provide the better performance, right?
100%. Yeah, these guys think on the order of like basis points or fractions of basis points, which are basically like 1/100th of a percentage, and that kind of stuff. When you size it up over thousands or millions of trades with millions of dollars of capital on the line, like these things add up to, like quite big, profits and losses.
Yeah. So, all right. So you have an L2 now, and as a user, you go on and is it kind of like, is it similar to like, I'm going to load up money into your protocol? Like, is that what it's going to feel like to actually bridge? Like, it's not like ETH, the Arbitrum, where it takes a long time and you have to go through that. It's like Solana wallet, deposit, then go. Like, do you use your same wallet? I guess, like what's the, I guess, what does it look like to, like, if like say a new user came to your platform and was going to use it, like what's that experience like?
These are fantastic questions and something I think a lot about. So we're trying to make it from the end user perspective feel exactly like you're just depositing into our current data platform on the L1. We don't want to have this kind of jarring experience of bridging. We've seen it on, for example, on, Arbitrum and some of these other rollups, like, they're pretty good, but you do have to wait like 15 minutes. You have to get this kind of new version on the rollup. And I don't know, there's just like a lot of friction essentially. So for us, the beauty of Solana being a very like fast to confirm chain or just having very quick block time. So the problem with bridges on Ethereum, like Ethereum takes 15 minutes to finalize. So you just simply have to wait for Ethereum blocks to finalize before you can make any decision. On Solana, because it's just so much quicker to churn out blocks, finality is off the top of my head, like 30 or 31 blocks, each block being 400 milliseconds. We're talking like 15 seconds max for bridging to essentially happen. We could lower that commitment level a bit, depending on like how, sure we are of rollbacks and other things. But generally, imagine that bridging is not going to take more than 15 seconds. In fact, it's probably just going to be a couple of seconds, with a nice little UI thing, with like a spinner or something or other. I think people are more than happy to wait a couple of seconds, and that won't feel any different to depositing to any other platform, which is cool. So in the background, yeah, essentially we're going to kind of run that bridge at the moment. Essentially, we'll be running like a trusted bridge, so stuff will get custodied on the L1 and then credited to the L2. Eventually, we're going to move to what's called like a kind of light client model. So we'll kind of run these light nodes of the rollup, and you can build this trust minimized bridge. I won't go into the details of that, but it's a slightly more kind of decentralized and provable bridge that will take us probably like 3 or 4 months to get out. So we'll be like soon after, I think, the mainnet launch. But I think, yeah, for the end user, bridge is going to be extremely fast and is going to feel like any other app, which I think it's quintessential, right? If our bridging took 10, 15 minutes, I don't think people would be excited, right? Like people are going to be like, no, I want to keep all my stuff on Solana. That's kind of the value prop is like, I want everything on Solana. I want the one wallet. And so you bring up a good point on the wallet stuff as well. We realize that's a pain point, right? If we go and people deposit the roll up, they suddenly have a new address, a new wallet, that's kind of painful. So something that's really cool that we're still kind of iterating and getting some of the details right is we're working with this team called Privy. They do embedded wallets, essentially. Really cool bunch of guys that I like a lot. And so what we can do is we bridge funds into the rollup, and essentially we can provision a new wallet for someone in the background, and the funds will go directly into that. And the beauty of that is essentially like people can use stuff like Web2 authentication in there. They can use Google to sign up. They can use their Twitter account to sign up. They can also come there, like you said, with their existing Solana wallet, whether that be Phantom or Backpack or Soulflare or any of these kind of ones, which is really nice. You give people the full flexibility, and having that kind of embedded wallet set up means that we don't actually have to have Chrome extensions anymore, which is beautiful. We can actually just have the thing in the UI essentially pop up. People can manage their wallet. It's like an in-app wallet, essentially, like an app-specific wallet, which is really nice. Coolly managed. That is also the secret sauce of what let us do these essentially headless transactions. If someone wants to go and sign something, it's not that we're kind of custodying their private key. It's we can kind of like essentially auto sign stuff or do session key stuff like on their behalf, which is all kind of very securely managed, where we don't have to kind of like share or expose private keys. So I think that's kind of a nice solution. We're still ironing out some of the details, but to reiterate, it should be a couple of seconds to bridge in. You have the wallet kind of auto provision to you, the money kind of put in there. You don't have to deal with funky Chrome extension. You can come in there as a normie who never had to download any kind of Phantom wallet in the first place. Like once we have on-ramps, obviously that will be like a really nice thing. And just feel like a centralized exchange, you log in, you have the wallet already ready for you. You have the funds that you can kind of bridge in, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. And I guess, once you're providing that level of experience, you're going to be attracting people that are, crypto native they're not going to want to use a wallet probably.
That's right.
I guess we'll see.
Who wants to manage private keys? I mean, if you're a guy who came off Wall Street bets and you're like, hey, I want to trade the latest, peanut coin or Pepe or something or other, you're going to come in there and you're like, I actually went through this experience, funnily enough. I got beers with a friend. I was at his place. He opened up his laptop. He's got like a trading view chart there and his Binance open. I'm like, oh, look, if you trade crypto,
Yeah.
And we had a bit of a chat about that. And I'm like, how about I onboard you onto our current exchange on Solana? And it was just multiple steps of pain essentially where he's like, okay, he logged in, he's doing it. I'm like, connect your wallet. And he's like, what's a wallet? And I'm like, okay, you got to install Phantom. So he goes to Chrome Web Store, installs Phantom, has to essentially write down his passphrase. Now he has a wallet and he's like, okay, now what do I do with my wallet? And I'm like, well, first you need gas fees, right? To like open up your account and do stuff. So you need to get Solana into his wallet. How do you get Solana? You need to go through a centralized exchange. So suddenly it's like broken down that we tried to onboard them onto a DEX and suddenly they have to go through a centralized exchange. So I kind of shortcut that by just sending him some money, but ideally there would be like a decentralized on-ramp that would just kind of get him in straight there. And so we got Solana into his wallet, USDT into his wallet, finally able to deposit into the exchange and start trading. But yeah, this was like 5 or 6 steps that didn't need to be in there. They're trying to shortcut that as much as possible. I think it's very important for crypto to get like proper adoption.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. It's like to me, I think onboarding now, it's so easy. The UI is great. Everything's like so quick, but like a lot of what needs to be done is like those first couple steps. It takes a couple steps, right? Like
Yeah.
you gotta get those right. So that's amazing that you guys will be able to kind of cut through all of that and just say, hey, just go. This is our site. Go there, and you can do everything there, right? Like a
Yeah.
one-stop shop would be great.
Yeah, I think that's what Moonshot and some of these other platforms did incredibly well for meme coins. Like I haven't used it much personally, but essentially they have an app, and I'm not endorsing this, but they have an app you can just basically onboard onto there, and you can use, I think like, Visa or any kind of other credit cards, and essentially go and on-ramp directly and start buying meme coins. And so it's really nice. You're essentially downloading an app like you normally would any other kind of fintech app, and you're just starting to use the payment rails of, your existing credit cards. There's probably going to be slight fees over there, but I don't think most people are too sensitive to this kind of stuff. Like crypto
Yeah.
prices move 10 or 30%. You got to pay like a little bit, on a kind of haircut for some of these on ramps. I think people will happily do that. And I think just like convenience is very clear with, some of those apps, like shooting to the top of the app store kind of
Oh
leaderboards.
yeah.
People really care about this. And that's kind of where the big wave in retail, I think, is going to come through.
Yeah, and I think even just like in app, like it's actually getting pretty competitive with the on ramps where it's like the fees are sub 5% now, where it's like actually that's not that bad. It used to be
Mhm.
10% plus. So I think that's a pretty good way to get them on. And now when you bring up meme coins, I was checking out Zeta, and it seems like you guys are listing some of the meme coins. I saw Mu Dang on there and a couple others. Is that going to be so? Like with the L2, is
Mhm.
listing new assets going to be harder, or is it just a matter of bringing them on? Like what is that going to be like?
Great question. So new assets is really like the lifeblood of, I think, good exchange. If you look at the ones that have succeeded recently or just generally, what do people know Binance and some of these other platforms for really well? It's like getting out the new markets and people love
Yeah,
to trade them. Actually, kind of interesting observation of why I think Uniswap had a lot of edge over Binance back in the day is permissionless listings, being able to go there and like, hey, I'm going to see the liquidity pool on Uni V2, and suddenly get my protocol, or my token out there. This is even more prevalent in, the pump.fun world, which is
oh yeah,
you have these very quick to churn out meme coins. I'm sure like Mudeng back in the day, all these other ones just launched by random anonymous dev. They get it out there. They just see the pool. You don't have to wait for centralized exchange listings. You don't have to wait for even this kind of like multi-day, multi-week period. Like the thing is just out there within literal seconds. It's kind of crazy. And I
it's
think that's what
insane.
people love. Yeah, and that's like why I think a lot of people have gravitated to meme coins. It's like the Wild West in that you can get in there, new things are listing, they're pumping, they're dumping. That's where like the alpha is and like the exciting opportunities. Like I still believe meme coins by and large are like somewhat negative EV to trade. That's why I still think I can't trade them too much anymore. But I can see the appeal and I can see that people really like jumping on the new thing, and it's very important. So for me, very clear realization. If we went out there and we listed BTC, ETH, Sol, and those are our only markets, no one would use our platform. Like literally no one
Yeah,
cares. But that's why we put a lot of time into listing Solana native assets. So whether that be like Jupiter, Jita, or some of these other ones, these like Solana ecosystem projects, people really love trading those. But then also I think the meme coins are super important. That was basically, you know, really enough what a lot of our community was asking for. We'd put out polls. What do you want to see next? Is it like Avalanche or is it Muding? And like everyone was just, for the meme coins. I'm like, okay, clearly we're on Solana. Let's not fight the current here. Like people love their
yeah,
meme coins, and Solana, weirdly enough, has gone from this kind of high frequency trading, node chain in 2021 to now this like very degenerate like meme coin chain. Kind of weird how that changed, but that is clearly what a lot of people have appetite and interest from. And so back to your point, the beauty of our new rollup and on the rollup is the fact that we're going to be able to list markets very, very quickly. We don't have to do these complicated on-chain deployments. Like all our infrastructure and making like very scalable and able to list new markets. Like we want to basically like my KPI there is I want to be able to list new markets within basically like an hour. We want to see this new thing
really.
come out.
Oh,
Yeah, and we
crazy.
just want to get it out there. And the beautiful thing is, especially on the pub side, but what I think you need to understand is we don't need for perps the native asset itself. The Mudeng obviously, or whatever it might be, like exists natively as an SPL token on the Solana L1. The beauty of derivatives is they are derived from the actual underlying price. So we don't actually need Mudeng, the coin itself, to be deposited into the rollup. All we need is an Oracle price.
The Oracle
And so,
price.
yeah, we worked with an Oracle provider. They're fantastic. They list a lot of these type of new markets and new price speak very quickly. They're actually rolling out some new stuff, which I'm not allowed to share, but like they're listing out some new stuff, which will allow, I think, new markets to go live quicker, because that's sometimes like a bit of a pain point for us. Like, new market comes out, it's a new meme coin, it's very hot, everyone wants to trade it. They need certain number of publishers to get live, and it takes like 2 days, and everyone wants to now. It needs to be launched instantly.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be really cool, and that we get the Oracle stuff down, and we also want to add kind of permissionless liquidity stuff. So the other problem to listing new markets is you need liquidity. The beauty of AMMs is you just seed some money into the pool, and essentially like people can trade it straight away. So we're trying to work on some certain solutions, either like an AMM that sits on the order book, or essentially a vault that people can deposit money into, and it will run this automated market making strategy on top of it. And so we can kind of go down this more route of, I would say, very fast listings off the bat, and then moving hopefully towards permissionless listings where people can kind of start to list their own assets and provide their own liquidity, kind of in the way that you've seen it happening with Radium. The goal very much there is, whatever is the hot U asset, we want to be listing lots of those, and we want to be listing them quickly and just offering like kind of reasonable leverage that is still kind of safe for the platform. I think is definitely the goal there. And the other beauty, like I said, since we moved out of the Solana virtual machine and we have this L2 with our own execution environments a bit more customized, we don't have these account limits that we used to have. Before, we basically couldn't list more than 30 markets at a time, because you got to get basically like, we had this cross margin system, which means you got to check the balances and the prices on all the different markets at once. And that's how you kind of determine the kind of margin on your wallet. It lets you trade, 30 different markets all from the same kind of trading account, which is really nice, which people love. But yeah, the limits of the Solana runtime mean that we couldn't really do more than like 30 or 35 at a time, which is kind of tough. We want to get to 100 plus markets. And I think that's what the rollup will enable us to do. We can list, I wouldn't say infinity markets, but, at least in the order of, thousands of markets, which I think will be pretty cool, and we can list them quickly. So I think that's like massive draw for us.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I mean, that is like exactly what Solana is right now. And what the majority of people are doing is they're coming to Solana for meme coins, right? Like we're kind of seeing like retail's coming, they're not buying our coins, they're just making their own coins. So, I mean, and a lot of these coins don't last for that long, right? So if you're not launching them right away, you're missing out on all of that. So that's awesome. You guys will be able to list them so quickly. I had a question. So if you are, if you're trading based off the Oracle price only, right? Are you guys able to provide like a lot better, like a way better execution than for somebody that's, I guess, in 5 milliseconds, you are able to, versus 400 milliseconds for Solana. But like, say like the current way to buy meme coins, like I'll use like FullX or BonkBot to interact in order to get the transaction through. Right. So I'll ping me. It's like $5 a transaction sometimes in order to get it through, because the price is just going all over the place. Right. So I can't follow it. I don't even think the price is getting updated fast enough in the system in order to get the transaction through. But if I don't get that transaction through, I lose money. Right. So are you guys, meme coin trading is like the meta right now, right? So everyone's kind of like trying to find the best way to do it. So is that going to be like one of the, not like main goals, but like a side goal is going to be really important?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think it's very clear that we have to cater to this stuff as much as possible. Like, I don't think meme coins are bad necessarily. Like, I talked to some of the bigger meme coin founders over the last couple of weeks, and they're pretty strong believers in it. They do think a lot of meme coin traders, now that they actually have made millions of dollars, or at least the successful ones, they actually tend to upgrade into perps trading, because perps trading is way more liquidity. You actually can trade in bigger size. Whereas if like there's a new meme coin out there, can you really chuck more than like 10 or 100 SOL at it? Like probably not.
Probably not.
But yeah, back to your question, like what will kind of drive, I guess, price discovery there? to your point on the execution stuff, absolutely. Like the execution on data built on Bullet will be much better. You'll have proper limit orders. You'll have extremely fast fills. You'll have an order book that updates thousands of times a second, which is really cool. The thing that's interesting is the spot stuff on the L1. I guess we still need to reference that as essentially like the reference price or the Oracle price for the asset. So that will update kind of slower. And the way that the Oracle price works is that determines what's called the funding rate on the perps. You can think of the perp price and the spot price, or the Oracle price in this case. They try and trap each other, right? Like your spot price is like roughly where you think it's kind of deserves to be, or like what the fair market value is. And the perp is essentially something that's trying to emulate or kind of be, I wouldn't say pegged, but try and follow essentially what the spot price is. And so sometimes there will be divergences. If people buy the hell out of the perp, it's going to be trading at a slightly higher premium to the spot price. That's why you have what's called the funding rate mechanism. The funding rate mechanism basically says the longs pay the shorts essentially now by a certain amount, and it kind of tries to rebalance. So if you're really long and the whole market is really long, it means you're paying a premium to that, and you'll actually be kind of losing a little bit of money paid back to the shorts to rebalance this thing. So I think it's pretty interesting. I actually haven't thought about it too much, but in the traditional context of markets, and even in crypto markets, the derivatives market is probably an order or two orders of magnitude bigger than the spot or equities market. And that's just because you get much more liquidity, much more leverage, like I said. It's really interesting when you see big price moves on stuff like Bitcoin, you actually tend to see it go through the futures and the options markets first, or that's where kind of the big price moves or price discovery tends to happen. And it tends to be a bit slower in the spot market. So we're definitely not seeing that in meme coins, because meme coins is like 100% spot right now. And we probably can't list perp markets on very, very nascent spot assets that don't have a lot of liquidity, that are moving 50% plus or minus. That's just like, that's like a risk to the platform, because we're offering leverage essentially. Yeah. But for the higher market cap stuff, I think if there was like a reasonably up and coming Solana meme coin that had enough liquidity and had like a reasonable market cap, listing perps on that and having a ton of trading activity go through that actually might start like leading the price discovery and kind of reflecting back on the spot market. Say people are really bullish and you can execute 1,000 times faster on the perp contract on this roll up. People see some news event, something crazy happens, who knows, like some celebrity goes and endorses this meme coin. Suddenly the thing moves 10%. It moves very quickly on the perp market. You've got a ton of buyers there, and then the spot is actually kind of playing catch up then. So if that happens, I think that's going to be very cool. I think we're still kind of like a couple of months off that as the kind of liquidity and tooling gets there. But yeah, if we can be the ones that usher that in, I think that'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah. You said that that typically the perps market can be like 1 to 2 orders of magnitude bigger than the spot market. When you said that, I got like a little scared thinking about all these meme coins, just like that much money being in there on perps. But that's what people are going to want,
I mean, if you look at it, I'm sure if you look at the Binance volumes, like the majority of like Bonk, Pepe, Wisp, like all this kind of stuff, as well as some of like the even bigger ones like Doge. I'm sure there's just like a insane amount of perps volume going through those, because they have perps contracts for everything. Yeah. People are going to go out there and they're going to be like, hey, I want to go 60x long Doge or something or other, because I think, Elon's going to do something crazy. So yeah.
Yeah. And I just don't see it stopping anytime soon too. So I just feel like it's still going to go crazy for another while. So why not?
Yeah, 100%.
So one question that I had. So now when you build Bullet, is this going to be, I mean, obviously you guys are building it, so Zeta's going to be on it, but are there going to be other protocols built on top of it too? Or is it going to be like basically just for you guys for now? Or how's that?
Great question. Yeah, that's, I guess sometimes people get confused, like the Zeta and Bullet, what's the difference? So Bullet is basically this high performance layer 2, the first kind of major L2 for Solana that we're focusing on. Ultra low latency use cases, trading being kind of like the main one there. And then Zeta is kind of the existing exchange that we have. It's built on Solana, but we're going to build the new version, ZetaX, on top of Bullet. That's going to be, I guess, like the cornerstone exchange and I guess application that's going to exist on Bullet. So for the short to medium term, I would say for at least the next 6 months, all our effort, given that we're a relatively small team, is going to be on getting Bullet kind of production ready and on mainnet, and then also launching ZetaX on top of that. So we're going to very much focus on, it's going to feel like more of an app chain, I guess, to start off with. I think we don't want to go out there and attract like, hey, you're building NFTs and gaming from our chain, and then we're going to manage like big ecosystem and muck around with a lot of things. And I think it fragments the focus away from the core vision, which is like, we're an app focused team and we want to build trading application to kick ass. And so yeah, really getting Zeta out there and making it incredibly good and competitive and, on par with, I guess, some of the leading perp dexes out there, some of the hyperliquid, some of the centralized exchanges. If we can kind of match or better that UX, that's like a big win for us. And then I think following that, opening it up to more people and letting other people build on the chain and kind of having those benefits, I think will be really cool and grow us past, kind of this kind of core contributor team. Off the bat, Zeta will have perps trading, it will have spot trading, and it will have a borrow lend. The borrow lend is mostly used for the margin system, but you can obviously borrow and lend stuff. There'll be native yields on the platform. So when you deposit into the perps exchange, you're actually kind of like earning yield on your deposits, which I think is really nice. So that's kind of a very trading centric thing. We have a bunch of ideas on things that we think are synergistic that would be really cool to build on top. One of them I think that would be really neat is, you've obviously seen Athena. It's this kind of a native, or this kind of a yield bearing stable coin. The way it works is they basically go and they put on what's called the basis trade on a bunch of centralized exchanges. So that means shorting the perp and longing the spot, and you're basically collecting whatever that premium is, I guess, on the difference between the two. So you're getting kind of like paid that funding rate. And the funding rates tend to actually be very high in something like a bull market. People are longing like crazy. So if you short the perp, you're actually just getting paid a ton of money, and you're still what's called delta neutral. Like, you're not really exposed to price fluctuation. Solana goes up or down. You're kind of hedged, but you're just kind of earning this premium from the fact that the market is net long. And so Athena is pretty crazy. I forget what the yield is like right now, but I think it's like north of 30% APY, which is pretty crazy for a stable coin.
Yes. And
High. Yeah.
I think they bridged over to Solana too, didn't they?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. So you
Yeah.
can use it on like Camino and stuff like that. So maybe we work with Athena, maybe someone build their own kind of native Athena on Bullet. That'd be really cool, because we will have this perps exchange. We will have a lot of demand. We will probably have high funding rates to start. And that's just really an opportunity to kind of create the yield source of that. So ideas like that, but I think are composable with the existing primitives that we've built into the chain. Likewise, if anyone wants to use the order books or the liquidity that we have on the perp side, or compose with some of the spot stuff or the borrow lending stuff, I think there are just a ton of interesting protocols that one could build on top. And mechanically, how that works is right now, I guess the perps, the spot, and the lending are kind of baked into the roll up. They kind of be like core primitives that like are almost on the chain level. You could almost think of it as like part of the core protocol. And so people, I guess we will add like a sandbox or a layer on top of that, which will just be this Solana virtual machine environment that people can deploy contracts into. And so the goal there is, we want people with existing Solana contracts to go and deploy them on Bullet. They'll be like, hey, I have like an AMM, or like I said, this kind of a stable coin idea. I deploy it on there, and then that should be able to talk under the hood to some of the existing like liquidity primitives we have. And so you can kind of build these composable apps, but not have to talk to us or have this kind of permission stuff or bake things into the chain. The thing will be permissionless. People can write their smart contracts, but it kind of runs on the underlying infrastructure and primitives that we built for the chain.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I think there was a stable coin on Solana for a little while that was Athena-like. I think it was like UXD.
Yeah, that's right. UXD. That's right.
Yeah.
Before Athena. Yeah, they funded it pretty soon after us. Yeah. I still don't know why they didn't take off. I think it was because we went into a bear market and the funding rate was negative. So they were actually just kind of bleeding money as opposed to generating a lot of money. But yeah, who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. The last I heard, I was looking into it a while back, because there was some good lending rates or something. And they were just like over collateralized USDC for a really long time. And then I think they shut down.
Correct. So that's right.
That'd be cool if they came back though. It seems like a cool use case.
100%.
Sounds good. So, and now are a lot of these protocols going to be compatible? Like when I think about like, all right, like I made some trades, I want to look and see what they did. Like I'll go on a block explorer. Do do you necessarily need a block explorer on this, or will you just be like, if I go on there, I'm basically just going to be using Zeta. So I'm not, I guess you probably still want to see like what's going on in the back end, but you'd be able to see your trades like within your app, right?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we could do away with the block explorer and just treat it like it's an app chain. You don't have to worry about that. But I think that kind of goes against maybe the whole principle of like this thing is running on a blockchain. It is like
Yeah.
cryptographically secure. The thing that I maybe didn't touch on enough is what's really cool about our design and sets us apart from a lot of other L2s is we use these general purpose DKVMs. So either like RISC-0 or Succinct. What they let us do is we can take the Rust code that we wrote for our order books and the matching engine where if you place an order and it matches it, the maker and the taker. This thing can be run through this zero knowledge virtual machine. And essentially you can have some kind of like proof or receipt that that computation actually happened. And so I think that's really cool. You can run this kind of very fast order book off chain. But it's not like running a centralized exchange, where people are like, oh yeah, this thing runs on Amazon somewhere and I got to trust the team that they've done everything correctly and they haven't just gone mapped a bunch of my orders or just kind of rolled me back on a bunch of stuff. Like this thing you can go through and you can be like, yeah, I know every single input to this thing, every single order that was played, and I can just kind of turn this thing over and repeat the computation. I can create this proof that this thing actually happened. And so I think that's the really cool part about our system is everything that happens, the roll up, you can go through and you can verify, and everything has a ZK proof that you can kind of show there. And likewise, yeah, that's the security aspect. Likewise, I think on the transparency aspect, it's nice to have a block explorer because yeah, you will be able to do some outside, we'll probably have some very simple NFT programs. People can kind of create their own stuff. They can create tokens. They can send it between wallets. But I think it's just nice from transparency. You see the thing execute on the front end. You'll have all the information. But yeah, you'll be able to pop out and you can see, hey, on the Block Explorer, this is exactly the stuff that got posted. This is the instruction. Here is all the proof of computation that I've done there. And so everything should just be like transparent to the end user. There's kind of no gatekeeping of information. You don't know like, oh, are the funds actually there in the back end or are they just showing me something on the UI just to make me feel happy? No, you can go in there, you can verify everything on chain. You can talk to the RPC. You won't just be talking to one RPC. Helios or whatever might be running their own RPC. Triton might be running another. You can go and you can talk to those guys independently. They will run a node and they'll verify stuff. And even if you don't trust what the team is running or what one particular node is running, you can kind of go and actually kind of like check for yourself essentially. And I think being able to be, go there and verify things for yourself, I think is like a very powerful thing. This also lends itself nicely to the design that we're trying to do with this light client stuff. So not to go too much into the details, but you can run essentially like a full node for Solana, where you go and you run this big chunky box and everyone's like, validators are very like hard and expensive to run, need a lot of hardware, and you basically do all the computation yourself. Something that Solana doesn't have that some of these like roll-up networks have and that we will have eventually is what's called light nodes. They can download a very small section of kind of the blocks that go through, and you can run things, it's like the meme of you can verify Ethereum on a Raspberry Pi or something like that. Yeah, that's kind of where the light nodes come into it. And this is what we'll have for our roll-up. And this is like what's going to be really good for wallets, for breaches and stuff like that. You don't need to run this big chunky node. You just need to run some very small client that should be able to run in your phone or very like low power hardware. And you can go and you can independently, instead of talking to the RPC that we provide you, or even if you don't trust Moat and he's the RPC and you think that he's doing something dodgy behind the scenes, you can go and you can just run this like very lightweight client yourself. And you can be like, I am basically my own sovereign node at this point. I can verify the chain. I can check everything and it's all done in my phone, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. Cause I guess, you won't necessarily have, all the other transactions. You don't have to deal with mainnet Solana or all of that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And this kind of light client design is just like ways to do it with the, basically instead of having to go into this big block, all the transactions, like run this chunky computation, that's where the ZK stuff becomes pretty incredible. And I caught up with one of the guys from like Celestio while I was in San Francisco, and he showed me the demo essentially where instead of having to download every block and do all the computation, they just do like a proof essentially, which says like from block X to block Y, essentially all this thing is being done correctly. All you download is like very succinct, small little proof, and you can just check that very quickly. You don't have to do a lot of computation. It's just like very lightweight. And so on his phone, he basically showed him just synced up to like the head of the network, and it just processed or verified that everything was correct. And I could do it in like just 5 seconds with like, a mobile device, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, but that's something that doesn't exist on Solana L1. So I think it's like pretty cool that we're kind of building that design into our rollup.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. What other differences are there between, I mean, obviously Solana is completely different from Ethereum, but when I think of L2s, all I think of is all the different L2s that are being built on ETH. Like, are there going to be like other significant differences? Like, is there like different levels of like decentralization or anything that we need to go into on that side?
That's a good question. On the decentralization aspect, I think a lot of it comes down to like the base chain. So we use the base chain for what's called settlement and data availability. So being able to take like you have this like Merkle tree thing that you'll compute on the rollup, and you can post the root of that, like the state root, you'll post that over to Solana. You also post all the data. So all the blobs essentially that happen on the rollup, you post on Solana. And so Solana has quite a scalable and also quite a decentralized validator set there that can all be kind of validated and secured by this big network of nodes. Ethereum obviously has, I don't remember what it is now, tens, hundreds of thousands of nodes. So yeah, Ethereum is incredibly decentralized, which is great for them, but they suffer the performance penalties. I think Solana, in my eyes, is definitely sufficiently decentralized at this point. You have thousands of nodes. It's very hard to do, kind of like a 51% attack on some of these, or I guess like with proof of stake, it's more like 33% attack to go through and like manipulate the network. I think it's pretty hard. So I think that level of decentralization is good. Sure, you can get better performance if we were to fork Solana and put 5 nodes on the network and co-locate them all in Frankfurt and call it a day. I don't think that's like a viable solution.
Yeah.
So I think that's nice from like the decentralization perspective. That's really good. The fact that we use these ZK proofs, I think is something that's very novel. It's something that Ethereum has spent 5+ years developing in their roadmap. And I think the kind of cool cheat code that we have, folks have just taken that prior knowledge and that research and they just speed run it on Solana. So we've got basically ZK proofs already working on mainnet within probably like 6 months to a year. Great guys like Light Protocol and Helios using it for account compression. People doing it for like private transaction stuff. And then, we're going to be able to use it for this kind of roll up scalability stuff, which is kind of all the rage right now, on the Ethereum side, people talking about ZK roll ups, ZK stack, scroll, whatever it might be. And then, we just basically we basically get a lot of this research for free and we just get it out of the box. And the cool thing is like people are kind of sleeping on this, but Solana has actually become the ZK juggernaut. Like a lot of the primitives, a lot of like the kind of curves that you would want to use and a lot of like the math primitives actually already exist or are kind of rolling out on Solana pretty quickly. So people say, oh, Solana is like centralized or relies on hardware scalability and, Ethereum is great. We have all these like incredible ZK tech and it's going to there was a big debate on this last week. It's pretty cool. People underestimate, we can basically take all that stuff and also do it on Solana. There's no reason why it can't happen. So I think that's a pretty exciting part is we're taking some of the prior art and prior knowledge on Ethereum and applying it for Solana. And I guess we are one of the first doing the roll up thing on Solana. So I definitely have to give credit to Ethereum Foundation and a lot of the researchers and a lot of the protocols that who've kind of laid a lot of the groundwork that we can kind of leverage and use it for the betterment of Solana here.
Yeah. Yeah. And it seems like a very like Solana thing to do is like the ETH ecosystem is like they're researching, they're doing theory, they're talking about like what could be like maybe what we can do. And then Solana will just take that and put it into development right away. Kind of thing,
That's
right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's part of our ethos for sure.
Yeah. Let's see. I got a question. So Tolly's always talking about increasing bandwidth and reducing latency. What did he have to say when you told him that you're building an L2?
Yeah, really good question. I think it was a little bit controversial at first. We talked to some of these people and they're like, I think there was just like a kind of misinformation thing where people were like, roll-ups bad, Ethereum bad, Solana good. We got to just like focus on like hardware scalability and like validators. I think that's definitely changed a bit. I think the thing that appeased Tolly when I talked to him, he just begged me. He's like, please don't just build Arbitrum on Solana. Don't build a general purpose L2 on Solana because he's like, we don't need it, right? You look at Solana, you look at some of the stats, the transaction fees the gas is already lower than Arbitrum and the throughput is already higher. So we just don't need something that is an Optimism or Arbitrum on Solana. I think there are some people building that. I don't really like know why that needs to exist, but yeah, like that's definitely not what we're trying to do. We're trying to be very application specific. And I think when I talk through some of the problems that we're having in terms of the congestion, in terms of some of the block space, in terms of needing to reduce latency and run our order books really fast, like totally gets it. Other people get it. They're like, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. And like, I think this is gonna definitely work in the kind of regime that we're in. They're trying to do stuff on the core protocol level. I talked to the temporal guys who run like a lot of MEV stuff and like trading infrastructure. They were like, yeah, totally agree. I think the, app chain kind of route that we're taking makes a lot of sense. They're trying to build stuff into the core protocol. Like Solana, Anatoly has this idea of multiple concurrent proposers, which is pretty cool, where basically like you'll have, instead of just one leader going around the globe, you'll have multiple different ones. And that actually should bring down the latency pretty significantly. Like, if you listen to any of Anatoly's talks, he has this kind of anecdote about how a news event happens in New York and then gets like broadcasted to Singapore, and you're basically traveling at the speed of light, and anything kind of at a shorter kind of latency than that is basically just like intro market noise. That's kind of his thesis. I think he's still very much on the plane of let's scale through the existing roadmaps. We want to build this kind of monolithic system. I think it makes a lot of sense, and I'm like fully behind that. I think for a general purpose chain, it's kind of a no brainer. And you see the benefits of like Jupe works because it's all on the one globally synchronized state machine where you can talk to all these underlying AMMs. It's all composable. You have all these very nice benefits. And I think that will continue to be really good. I think with the rollup thing, like candidly, you are making the compromise that we're seeing runs its own state that is separate to Solana and that periodically kind of synchronizes. But this thing it's like, it's a network extension. Like it's related, but yeah, fundamentally it has its own state. There is like a bridging experience there. We don't have the same kind of composability benefits of, atomicity and synchronous composability that you have on the L1, where I can just call all these different AMMs of the hood and I can kind of do my complicated transactions there, which is a bit unfortunate. But for a purpose exchange, I think these things can kind of exist in a world of their own, at least. And as long as you have a nice fast bridge there, people know that they're going to this ecosystem. It's like using a centralized exchange where you deposit your funds in there. Now you suddenly have this cheaper app where you have a lot of things at your fingertips, and it's extremely fast. So we're willing to trade off a little bit of that composability, which, to be honest, as a purpose exchange didn't matter to us so much in the past. And we're willing to trade that for, 100x improvement in our latency and throughput and all these other metrics. So yeah, I think Solana's, or at least Austin's been pretty supportive. I know Cloud Talk's big on the network extensions. And I think he just really likes the fact that people are going out there, they're using Solana, they're using it for different use cases, and it can be extended to do some of this application specific stuff. Austin kind of coined that term as well, and he really likes it. And it's been great. Like, Anatoly's shared a bunch of our blogs and other kind of thinking around it on Twitter. So I really appreciate his support. And I think it's good that he's willing to engage in these debates, and he kind of sees the merit of some kind of different designs. And I don't think, people tend to see it's like a black or white thing, these things are mutually exclusive. And I really don't think that's the case.
Yeah. I think it's actually like a really cool and unique solution to the problem that your users were facing, right? Like it's undeniable that like you can provide a better service, a better use, and make users happy. And I feel like that's kind of always been the core of like where Solana's won. So I think that it also, it's helping people out, and I think that people are going to love it. So I'm excited.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think the problem right now is like we're still kind of leaking some professional traders to the centralized exchanges and to hyperliquid. People have to go off throughout the chain. I think it'd be beautiful if we really managed to execute on this thing and build something that is, far greater than that, and have that natively on Solana. People can take their existing assets, they can bridge there. Everything's still more or less in this like whole Solana bubble, Solana ecosystem. And you have this pretty great exchange there, which people can use and be proud of that. And people don't have to make compromises. So that's really the goal for us.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, I'm super excited. I can't wait to check it out. Let us know how we can get in on the early closed beta, or when we can get there, and how to check it out.
Yeah, 100%. So our timelines right now, we literally just rolled this out. So there's still some like rough edges to work through on the closed beta. That's why we tried to keep it closed. And I don't want to go out there and like feel like, like sources is broken or like things are a bit janky. So
Yeah.
Still like working with things very quickly and iterating, which has been good. We've got a lot of good feedback. So currently it's in this closed beta. I think if you're like a professional trader or someone who's really got a lot of experience in Solana, like we're keeping the group small, but like please do pop up, either DM me or our account on Twitter. I'm at Tristan0x on Twitter and like pretty responsive there. Likewise, you can also just jump into our Telegram and just drop us a note. We're kind of whitelisting people for that. We're trying to open it up more come January next year. Once we've got a few more weeks of polish on things, things are pretty stable. We're pretty happy with it. You know, things are going to look better for the average user. We're going to start rolling that out to a much bigger group of people. Getting more of the general public on there to try it out. And then we're trying to go to mainnet. I don't want to promise anything too concretely, but it should be end of Q1 is what we're aiming for to get out there on mainnet. And we're just trying to like speed run that and get that out there and just like cut scope and get that thing out there. We just like go for a code freeze, go for an audit to make sure everything is kind of secure and safe. But yeah, things are working right now. You can use the exchange. You can deposit, like take money into it and trade it, and extremely fast. And the feedback that we've been getting from people is like, wow, this thing is like blows the socks off like existing things that they've tried. So I think the signs are really positive, and yeah, if people want to try it out and get that sneak peek, definitely get in touch with us, and we'd be more than happy to link you up.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, I'm looking forward to it and really appreciate you coming on the show, and we'll definitely be tracking your progress. If you want to come back on at any point, let us know when you're launching. Come back on.
Okay, sounds really good. Thanks so much for having me, Thomas. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Tristan. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Solana Weekly. Once again, this is Thomas Bahamas, and I have one final ask for you guys. If you could, please subscribe on whatever player you're listening to. You could leave a review. That would be amazing. If you want to shill me your bags, work for them. But yeah, really appreciate it. And as always, this is not financial advice, but I want you guys to accelerate, move forward, and let's get this bag. I'll catch you guys next week.